slow moving car. Go ahead and mute it. And Mrs. Stelzer, whenever you are ready.
Okay. Stand for pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you are still muted.
I know. I was trying to get it off because I was using my finger.
Yes. Mrs. Stalzer.
Here.
Mrs. Egan.
Here.
Ms. Davenport.
Present.
Mrs. Callan. I see her logged in. Mr. Hillman.
Present.
Mrs. Lammel. Here. And Mrs. Petropoulos.
Here.
Let's see you all.
You're still muted, Nancy.
Okay, I'm glad. Welcome. I'm hoping. Okay, what I want to see right now, very soon, is that we get into regular school. So we'll see what happens. That's all I can say because I don't know what's going to happen any more than you do. Okay, 2.0 gifts to the district. Potential action for Rich Lawn to accept $500 award from ExxonMobil Educational Alliance. Proposed policy gifts to the district.
And this was a gift from ExxonMobil Corporation. Ridge Lawn has a parent who works over at the one on Ridgeland Avenue. And the money is to be used towards STEM activities. So assuming that the board accepts this donation, I know that Mrs. Sitaro and Ms. Kazmarek are planning on meeting with the staff tomorrow to kind of talk about the donation and how it can be used. So I would recommend that we go ahead and approve this.
I'll make a motion.
Later. Okay, approval of consent agenda.
No, we.
No, we're gonna do it right now? Oh, okay. Motion, please.
I already made a motion.
I second it.
Who first did it? Who first did it?
Thank you very much. Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs.
Oh,
Egan.
yeah, I'm all rattled right now.
Aye.
Yeah,
The audio is terrible. We're
Mrs.
having a very hard
Petropoulos.
time here at home. Aye.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Lammel.
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. Okay, approval of consent agenda. Minutes of the January 12th meeting, open session, minutes of the 12th meeting closed, and minutes of the January 26th study session.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Superintendent.
Mrs. Lammel.
Aye.
Mrs. Salzer.
Aye.
All right, once again, good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our superintendent's reports. First up for the PTA, right now the PTA is really just trying, once again, to figure out exactly what fun activities they can plan during the pandemic. I know one of the things they've talked about is a possible virtual trivia night. And again, my favorite things, the food raisers are going to continue monthly. So I know that they are busy continuing to plan, and I will update you as we get more information. 4.2 enrollment report. Right now, in the month of January at 1,428 students. We are down about 15 students from last month. We're starting to see some movement for people who had not really moved at all. We're starting to see a little bit more of that open up. So right now, we are down 15 students from last month. 4.3, vacant positions and possible staffing needs. You'll see our list is not very long this time. And we're very pleased to report for the last month, we've had a full custodial staff. That's everything from our floats to our temporary cleaning positions. So those have been filled. We're obviously always looking for substitutes, both custodials and teachers. So those continue to be on there. But it has been nice to be able to have a full custodial staff. Next item on my agenda is we've updated this every single month, our COVID numbers and where we are with hybrid learning. So I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation, and the first couple slides will look exactly like all the other ones have, with a few graphs. And then I'll continue to go in and talk a little bit about our learning model, where we are now, and what some options are really for us possibly moving into the future. And once I bring that up, I'm not going to be able to see if anyone has any questions. It's not a very long presentation tonight, so I'm more than happy to answer those questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen now. So if I start off, again, this is the same shot you've seen just about every meeting for the last 5 months, and it shows our 7-day rolling average for the positivity rate here in Chicago Ridge. If you remember way back in the summer, they always talked about that 8% kind of as the line that you should be looking at. You'll see in December, obviously we were way above that, and then we took a really big dip towards the end of the month. We've been able to stay below that 8%, and right now, Chicago Ridge has been in about the 4% range. And if you remember, back in November is when they added probable cases to that. So these numbers, as low as they are even lower than they would have been like back in October. So then we have our local positivity rate for all the districts that touch Chicago Ridge. And again, you'll see the numbers compared to how they were 2 months ago are looking really, really good. Oak Lawn is coming in just about 5%. So both areas of where our kids come in from are looking very, very strong. I'm going to pull up our dashboard, which was just, I update every Friday, but I always try to update also on the night of the board meeting. We still have not had any confirmed school transmission based on the definition. And then confirmed positive students. We did have 2 students yesterday that were both siblings, one at Lawn, one at Finley. But since we've come back, we've had in person, we've had 5 total students in the 4 weeks when we have been back. Confirmed positive staff, we haven't had any in a while, which has been really, really nice to see. And even our students quarantined are much lower than we had seen back in the beginning of December. Currently, we have 4 students who are positive or who have had a quarantine, 2 of those from being positive and 2 from contact outside of school. Our staff quarantine, right now we have 1 staff member from a contact out of school that is being quarantined. So again, those numbers are looking exactly where we'd want to see them at this point. So we wanted to touch base with the board on exactly what our learning model looks like. We have tried really hard since we came back for students who are really struggling, who have been remote. I know our administrative team and our social workers and our teachers have tried bringing in students who have been struggling remotely. And we have seen those numbers tick up for people who are in person. So right now at Finley, we have 48% of the students in person, 52% remote. Over at Ridge Central, we have 59% in person and 41% remote. And over at Ridge Lawn, we have 55% in person and 45% remote. So that overall, you can see the district is at 54% of our students in person. So one of the things that we keep hearing, they keep talking about opening up schools and trying to get as much in-person learning as possible. And that's obviously always our goal. The most in-person learning we can get while still following the safety guidelines that have been put out for us. And so our options moving forward right now is we could continue in the AM/PM model. We feel we've been successful. Kids are used to that schedule. We obviously have had low transmission numbers, so that's very nice to see. The other possibility is combining the AM and PM classes and going to a 4-hour day from 8:10 to 12:10. That prevents from people having to take off their masks and to eat in the buildings, which is most people would say does cause more transmission. And then the other option that some schools have chosen is to remove the hybrid model completely and to go the full day. So you're either in person a full day, every kid is in the school that wants to be there, or those who are remote stay remote. So I just wanted to point out again some positives that we've seen in our current AM/PM hybrid model. Students have received live instruction every day, and that was really important to us, especially as we've talked about that social and emotional aspect. Some districts have gone where the kids are in school maybe 2 days one week, maybe 3 another, and there's these gaps where nobody is seeing these students live. So it's been nice to have them in person every day. The small class sizes have really allowed for a lot more one-on-one work to really check in with those students and to provide differentiation. And again, it's been consistent in-person learning since the middle of October. We saw a lot of districts at Thanksgiving time have to close down from Thanksgiving all the way to January 19th because of high numbers and having a lot of students in the classroom. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that. We did take an adaptive pause right after the winter break, just because numbers were really high in the surrounding communities. And I think that was the right call at the time. Again, this kind of goes with the one before, but interaction between teachers and students every day. And we've been able to keep that 6 feet of distance between students, which is the high standard of the recommendations. But there's also benefits if we add instructional time, increase of in-person instruction. I don't think anyone would argue that from an instructional standpoint, the more time we're in school, the better it is for our kids. Increased opportunities for socialization. We all know that the socialization this year is not the same as it has been in the past. Just when you look at activities and you're not getting into groups inside the classroom, but there still are those opportunities for socialization. And there's also less screen time for students. And I know that's a concern of many people, of how often our young kids are sitting in front of a computer screen. If we do make a change and increase instructional time, there are some things that need to be very clearly stated. And that is, if we, in our classrooms here in Chicago Ridge, that if we combine and bring in more kids, that we would not be able to keep our 6 feet of social distance that we currently have. We would definitely be able to meet the standard of 3 to 6 feet, which is what is recommended, but we would not be able to have 6 feet in the classrooms. Elementary students may have to receive a new teacher due to class size restrictions. Depending on who was coming back, there might be some lopsided classrooms where you would be potentially looking at one classroom that had 30 kids in it and another classroom that had 12. So some of those would have to be balanced out. Junior high is always a little bit different than elementary, and we would have to see new schedules for just about everyone and some new teachers put in there as well. And obviously we're all the way in February right now, and making those disruptions is something that you have to weigh and balance with more instructional time. And again, everyone within 6 feet for a cumulative 15 minutes and 24 hours of an individual who tests positive will have to be quarantined. And you saw our numbers currently of what is quarantine, and they're not high. There's a local district, I'm not gonna name who it is, but it's right down the road, and they have been in person with about 90% of their students for a large portion of the year. And currently they're about the same size as we are. They have 188 students who are quarantined, and 171 of them, it is because of close contacts in school. And so those are all things that disruption to the kids, the disruption of the classroom, and to our families are all things that we're going to have to continue to balance as we move forward. So what are the next steps that we're really looking to do right now? What I would like to do is really survey our community and send out this information to them and say, here is where we are. Here is what it would look like if, let's say, we moved to a 4-hour day and brought more students in. This would not be a commitment from our families, but I anticipate some families who are remote would be interested in coming now because it's 4 hours instead of 2.5. But I also believe that there would be some families who would say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable that it's 6 feet. I've had my kid in person. I'm going to keep them home because it's not that 6 feet of distance. So we really want to get a handle on the numbers. When those numbers are completed, we need to come together as an administrative team and see how all the pieces fit together, whether it's special ed, EL, what kind of specials could we possibly offer in person versus remote. So those are all things that we would want to look at once we have those numbers. And then once we have that plan, then we would communicate back to our families and ask for a commitment at that time with the model that we would be choosing. And then just to throw another wrench in it, I don't know how many of you watched the Super Bowl on Sunday. Obviously didn't go how I wanted it to, but about 45 minutes before that, President Biden came on in an interview and said that they will be releasing new CDC guidelines for schools tomorrow at some time. We have not seen anything. We have no idea what is going to be in there. So that can completely change everything I just talked about. So we want to make sure we've had a chance to look at that before we even send anything out to our families, hopefully later this week. So again, I just wanted to kind of share our thought process and what we want to look at moving forward. But I definitely would be open for any questions that the board might have right now. Mrs. Petropoulos?
Am I okay to unmute?
Yep.
Okay, so a couple of questions, and this may be something that I should already know, but right now, if a student tests positive in a class, anyone who's considered in close distance or close contact has to quarantine. So if we change the parameters and we do the 3 to 6 feet, how will we determine then what is close contact? Would a whole entire classroom have to quarantine then? And then if those kids all did have to quarantine, because our school doesn't offer a hybrid where the teacher is teaching live and at home, those kids who would have to quarantine for these said 10 days, how would they be instructed? Would it just be like if you were absent from school and you have paper homework? So that's a concern I have. The other concern or question I have is some students have already switched teachers twice. So I know that you mentioned that there would be a possibility that kids would possibly have to switch teachers again. Would that be taken into account that a student would have to possibly have a third teacher? And then also, depending on what comes out tomorrow, I'm not sure when this trimester ends or when you know what I mean, ends. I don't know if that would be a smoother transition instead of having another teacher take over the grades. Those are my questions.
Yeah, and I'll start off by answering the quarantine. A lot of districts who are in this position where they're under the 6 feet have moved to quarantining an entire class, and that class moves into basically the same model, but the teacher is quarantined also, so would continue to teach that class online. So that is what we've seen from most of the districts who've gone that way. And then again, with having to change teachers, I know that we would look at every possibility to make sure that didn't happen and try to take in a whole bunch of considerations to make sure it impacts the least amount of kids, because that's not something that we want to do. And then I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what your third question was. I know it had to do with once the guidance is brought out.
I think you covered it. It was about the amount of spacing, because I don't think we quarantine whole classes now because there's that 6 feet of distance. So whatever is considered close contact, just because someone is positive in the class doesn't mean everyone. So my concern was, since we're now space-wise, we'll have to go less than that. You know, my concern is that those kids, if they all have to quarantine because of exposure, will they not be getting synchronous learning? But if the teacher would be quarantined as well, then they would still be provided basically a Zoom type of class in the interim until they were unsymptomatic. So that was it. And then the idea is if a student has already had to switch teachers 2 times, if there would be some type of, looking to make sure we're not having kids have a third teacher. I mean, we're talking about social emotional health as being one of the big things, establishing a rapport and a relationship with a teacher, with your classmates. If they're having to switch again, I just feel like that is kind of an issue. So I know that obviously it's probably like a numbering nightmare, but I do think that that's something that's really an important thing to look at.
Thank you. Mrs. Egan,
One more thing, sorry. And then would we be able to increase the bathroom cleaning? Because that is like, I just feel like more kids, more time in the building, having to use the bathroom. Some kids probably don't use the bathroom at all now. So that was the other thing.
and I think you definitely have to really look at those high touch areas even more so because you'd have more kids in there. So, Mrs. Egan?
Okay, so going with that, I mean, I would like to see more of a plan. What Chrissy brought up a timeline. So you haven't addressed when you would like to put this into effect. She also brought up the trimester ending and grading and how that could work. Cleaning is a huge part that should, like, those are all details that we should know right now having this discussion. When this plan was set up for AM PM, it was set up assuming 100% of our students would all choose hybrid. And if I remember correctly, our discussions in the summer, there were only a few classrooms across the district that would not allow for the 6 feet of space. And it was a very few classrooms. And I think it was even said only at the junior high. So now I'm concerned that we only have 50% of our kids even in the buildings, 25% in the morning and 25% in the afternoon. And now you're saying that most classrooms wouldn't have the 6 feet of space.
So when we had talked in this, can you get that? When we had talked in the summer, if we assumed that it was 100% who had chosen that, you would see 50% in each model. And so Ridge Central, for example, right now, if we brought all the kids together at one time, that would be 59, 60% who would be there at one time. So that's why it would not allow that distance. In terms of,
No, the plan was for 100% of students. We didn't know 50% would choose to stay remote. So the plan of AM and PM was set up from the get-go for 50% in the morning and 50% in the afternoon.
Mhm.
So now
I'm saying right
that there's
what I'm saying right now is if we combine the classes right now at Ridge Central, you'd be at 60% right now. So you're talking a few more kids in each classroom. So that's why it doesn't fit that model.
but we should have already had enough space for 100% of our kids.
To be 6 feet?
If it was okay, you're saying a couple of kids. All right, never mind. What about, how are teachers supposed to keep track of this?
Keep track of,
Close contact.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble, Mrs. Egan.
How would teachers keep track of close contacts?
Well, and we obviously have a seating chart right now, but that is one of the reasons that I would be a proponent if we did go to this model that we would have to quarantine a whole class if we had someone test, if a student or a teacher tested positive in there.
Okay, so Chrissy brought up the idea of Zooming during quarantine, but that was not presented either. So what is the plan for whether it is one student or a class of students or a teacher who has to be quarantined?
The plan is to wait and to see what the guidance is tomorrow when the CDC comes out with their new guidelines, and then to sit down with the admin team and plan that out. Again, what I would really like to know is from the community that the biggest thing is knowing that it would not be 6 feet at that time, and to see who still felt comfortable with sending their students.
Okay, but parents cannot make an informed decision without having all of those components. And so it's unfair to just send a blind survey asking, do you want your kids to be in full time or more time? Because of course parents want that. Every parent wants that. Every teacher wants that. But they deserve to have a very clear plan of what that will look like before giving their opinion on whether they would like to do that for their kid or not. And I'm not talking signing them up, because you said you first would like to put out just a information only gathering, but to gather valid information, they need to have a valid plan with details.
And we will continue to get those once we have that information from the government. Because again, I don't want to have a plan in place right now that we have to completely switch when it comes out, let's say tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Anyone else have, oh, go ahead.
So what is your timeline, assuming you're going to get information tomorrow, and then what?
Yeah, and then we'll sit down as an admin team and really look at what we can do with those guidelines. I know our trimester ends at the end of this month, so the goal would be sometime between the end of the month and as soon as we can before spring break to make a switch if that's when it was going to happen. Anyone else have any questions? Mrs. Lammel?
As myself. Okay. My question is, you're talking about getting everybody in. Are there going to be people, I guess I know we're talking about the plan and we can't get it all there, but do we foresee, and I'm guessing we are, that we are going to have some parents who are still going to say, no way, Jose, talk to me in August. So, I mean, is that going to kind of upset the apple cart again? I mean, is that part of your getting this plan? I mean, I guess I'm excited about trying to get this plan together, but part of me is kind of nervous. I feel bad for all the work that you guys have done so repeatedly, and you know, the government can just go poop and change it, and then all of a sudden you're putting a lot of time. I mean, I think about all the time you guys took in the summer to have it just go to, you know, hell in a handbasket, to be like knowing that like half of the parents may decide, okay, hybrid was okay, but now no. And are we prepared to have that many students, more students going to remote? Because I did not think as many students would be on remote as there are, to be honest with you.
And I do think, again, we'll see kind of both ways. I think you'll see some who move from in-person to remote and some who move from remote to in-person. I don't necessarily think we'll see too much of a change at the junior high. I think those numbers, for the most part, have stayed pretty consistent. But it is at the elementary level that we have to really watch those to see which way they're going. Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Salzer.
Just for the rest of the board's information, the staff, Dr. Thorns and the administrative staff has been working on numerous plans throughout this whole past year. And every time they get one set, they start working on what's going to happen, what possibly could happen in the future. Am I right? I mean, you guys have been doing this every step of the way. And we always have nuts and bolts thrown into the process because the state changes and now the feds might change things, but they're constantly working on plans. And, you know, you just can't always do what you plan to do because you have to turn on a dime and change it in 2 days' time. So we're gonna have to take it as it comes, and it's not like people aren't prepared. They are. It's just that things change. Can't do anything when they change. Just go with it and fix it. So that's right. This is how I believe we're at.
Are there any other questions at this time? I will definitely, when we get the information tomorrow, after I have a chance to go through it, I will share out any pieces of information that are relevant and continue to keep you informed on what we're doing from an admin standpoint. I'm going to jump down to 4.5, which is our second annual South Suburban Human Resource Administrative Job Fair. Last year was the first year we had joined, and we were all excited. Our principals were going to go and interview all these people at, I believe it was going to be at Homewood Flossmoor, and that was scheduled for April, so that didn't happen, but they did start doing virtual interviews. And this year, February 1st, people were able to start recording themselves and send in interviews, which we've been able to forward to the administrators. And it's a really nice way because we all know that there's a teacher shortage and it's just going to become more and more pronounced. So when we can kind of get a mass number of people that we can look at and see if they fit our need, it's really nice to be able to do that on the computer instead of trying to set up interviews and not having that happen. So we're excited to be able to do that again this year. Next, we have 4.6, board discussion on the school calendar for school year 21-22. And this is, I've included just a first draft in there along with 218's calendar. And the calendars right now look exactly the same other than the start and end date for the years. And if you take a look at draft A, That is, our Teacher Institute would be on the 23rd, with the first day for kids being on the 26th. And then draft calendar B starts a week earlier. Everything else stays the same, but it starts a week earlier. And so that's the biggest difference between these two. A couple other things to point out in these drafts, that parent-teacher conferences look similar to what they have been in the past. 218 is giving their students off the entire week before Christmas, the entire week after Christmas, as well as that Monday and Tuesday. In talking with all the elementary districts in the area, no one else is doing that. Everyone is looking to go that Wednesday to Wednesday. So starting the break on December 22nd, and then students returning on January 5th. The other thing that I want to point out in here is that we do have a Teacher Institute scheduled for Tuesday, March 15th. That would be an election day. That's why you have a random Tuesday Teacher Institute. And then the other day, if you remember, this is the first year that our students and staff will have Eid off. We have been told that Eid is May 3rd. We're still trying to get confirmation from the other mosque. So before we have a final draft, it looks like it would either be Monday, May 2nd or Tuesday, May 3rd. And they did commit previously that they would make sure they set that date and not change it. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look this over, but if you have any questions, and it looks like Mrs. Egan has her hand raised. So Mrs. Egan.
So I thought that when we looked at August, and you, I thought that the options, the two options of the start date were similar to what we've done now or a week later. But it looks like it's similar to what we've done now, the 26th-ish, or a week earlier. So, I mean, in my opinion, not knowing what the summer is going to bring and where everything is going to go, it would seem like we would want time on our side and would want to be going a little bit later than any earlier or even at the same time as we've done in the past.
Yeah, and I believe this past year, our original schedule was to start that week earlier, which is in draft B, and then the other one is a week later than we were scheduled to start. Obviously, with the 5 planning days and everything, we ended up starting later this year. But that's draft A is about a week later than what we would have started last year.
What was the start date for this year?
I don't have that on me.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
Like I said, I know it was that week of like August 16th was the original scheduled date before we had the 5 planning days. But I definitely agree that when we look at a starting date, that a later, even if it's just the later date of these drafts, does make sense for this year as we try to plan out. Just because we don't know what the summer is going to bring, and to be able to give ourselves some time, I think is always a wise move in times like these.
Was it August 24th? Was that the
Mrs.
first day
Sullivan?
this year?
I'm sorry, what, Mrs. Petropoulos?
I didn't know if it was the 24th of August.
And that could have been with our 5 remote planning days, but again, I don't have it on me right now.
It was the 31st with the planning days. The school calendar. So it must have been supposed to have been the 24th. So, I mean, we're looking at starting at exactly the same point as we had already been planning this year. That's not giving an additional week.
Mm-hmm.
So I am suggesting that we plan it for a week later. I would like to see that discussed or a draft for what that could look like.
So start the last week of August is what you're suggesting, like into
Yes.
September?
Unmute yourself. President Seltzer asked.
I have a question regarding that. What would be the real purpose of starting later? I'm sorry, I'm lost with that one.
I think really the purpose is just knowing, in my mind, knowing how much the state changed things all summer long, and knowing that they could still throw some curveballs this summer, and to give us some time to really plan that leading up, and that would be my purpose behind it. Mrs. Lammel?
Okay, I'm looking at, like, you're talking about those plans and everything, and I'll be honest with you, even going further, I don't like the first one. I think I don't like, the one that I don't like is B, which is sooner. Not necessarily because of when we're starting, but necessarily when we're ending. And the only reason is, it's not because, it sounds just so silly when you've got people who are going to, there's the holiday on May 30th, and then you're going to be out, they're going to go to school on Tuesday and gone Wednesday. Kids aren't going to show up. They're going to be gone. So, you know what I mean? A lot of parents are going to be like, why bother or whatever. I would see going to that next week being like June 8th, and definitely being that start on the 24th. I don't know about going any later than that, because that would push you into being, that means if we started even a week later, like you're thinking, Tiffany, you're talking about the kids are going to be going to school till June 15th. That. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't see why that's problematic, just my opinion.
But I agree with you, starting that early, no.
So what I can do is I can, if most people are in agreement, I can look at what we currently have as the later start, and then another one kind of maybe even midweek, which I know we haven't done in a while, but I know that a lot of districts do that. So I can check a couple different options. Any other comments on any other parts of the calendar at this time? And usually at this point, we're a little bit further along, but 218 was about 3 to 4 weeks behind where they normally were in approving their calendar. All right, I will get that kind of put together, and I will send an updated draft later this week. So we should be on 4. Let's see this nice little pack. All right, 4.7 is FiveLab. The board remembers a lot of the financial documents and graphs and charts that Kathy has been able to provide from financial information. That is from Forecast 5. And Forecast 5 last year came out with a new product called FiveLab, which is able to take together all the student data from all of our different areas, our teacher areas, our Google Classroom, everything that we would use, and pulls that together so that we can really be looking at all the data we have on one child. And so we are very excited about this. We are able to use Title I funds for that. We are also able to use the CARES money for that. So it is at about $10,000 a year. They come in, and it is not cheap, but they do a really nice job. And so they would prorate this year, and it would be basically almost a 2.5-year contract with them that, again, we'd be able to use this grant money on throughout the entire time. So I think we would use it a lot over the next 2 years to make sure our administration got to see a presentation on it, and they were very impressed with the capabilities of it. So that's something later on that I will be recommending the board approve.
Will the grant money cover?
Will the grant money cover the 2.5 years, or just this first piece?
Yeah, so right now we can only put in the first piece into Title I. We do know that we can extend out the CARES money, but our goal would be to enter it into Title I each year after this, but you can't put it all in at one time. But they don't bill all at one time. Right now they would just be billing the 4,000 plus for this year. And then on One District, One Book, I've talked about this previously. We're really excited for this. This is an initiative that we want to launch April 12th with all of our families, where each student and staff member would receive a copy of the book, The Lemonade Wars. And it's basically the entire community would be reading this, the school community. In the future, we would love to even branch out farther and include the library. And this year, with everything going on, that it's one of the few things they were not interested in partnering with us. They usually want to partner every time with us. But it's basically a program that would provide books for all the kids. We do know that a lot of our families would not be able to necessarily read it in English. So we've already talked with some of our native speakers who are willing to read each chapter out, and we'd record that so the families could still do that together. And it does come at a cost of $10,459.12. And that includes all the books along with lessons and activities that we can share out with the families. I've had a chance to do this in my previous district. I know Mrs. Knopfnagel has done it before, and it's just a great way to bring the community together. And especially in a year when we do have to socially distance, it would just be nice to know that everyone is doing something together. So I would have asked that we approve that. And again, that cost, it goes into another grant, our after schools program grant as well. And that entire total can go in there. Next for 4.9, the NWEA MAP testing. This is again for our students in grades K through 8. We have started testing at all 3 buildings, and it's going very well so far. We have, remember when we spoke before, we wanted to try to get as many of our remote students in to take the test as possible. We have about 70% of our remote students who are scheduled or have already come in to take that test in person. So I think that was a very successful push on our administrator's point. And students in K2 who aren't able to come in, they will not be testing this round. Just from past experience from talking with other districts, it did not help the kids. They got very frustrated, and the data was very skewed because oftentimes the parents would have to help during that time. We are hopeful that by the end of the month, we will have all of our data compiled, and that at the next board meeting, I will be presenting where we are in that data. And then for 410, which is COVID sick leave, I had hoped that I would have some information to approve later in the meeting for an MOU. Unfortunately, we still have a few things that we are trying to hammer out right now. So that is, we will not be looking for approval of that later in the meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kathy for the Chief Business School report.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, everyone. Okay, I wanted to start off with giving you the highlights of our capital projects update. At the end of January, we had a virtual meeting with Knickerbocker, and that is the company that is going to be doing our roofing replacements. They will actually be doing some of the patching and prep work over spring break. And then that work will be started up again after the last day of school. In addition, we did solicit bids for the lighting replacement, and last week those bids were opened up in the district office. And the way the bids were requested is we had a base bid, an alternate, and a second alternate. And it's the recommendation of Studio GC to approve the base bid, which includes all of our emergency and exit lighting, along with one of the alternates that contains a lot of the recess lighting, the decorative lighting, and some additional lighting in the mechanical rooms. Now, when you put those two together, it is about $45,000 more than what we estimated initially the cost would be. And so that is a concern, but looking at the bids that were received, we feel like we're getting a lot for our money for that $215,000. And so we'll be asking the board to approve that contract later in the evening. And also something we're going to be doing over spring break. We still need 46 door closers installed throughout the buildings per health, life, safety. So very pleased to say that we solicited proposals for those. It was under the $25,000 benchmark, so we didn't have to formally bid, but that will be asking you to approve at $11,270. So I'm very excited to get that off the health, life, safety list. Next is the school fees for the next school year, FY22. We'd really be recommending the board to leave the fees constant. And although the registration dates are not set yet, we'll also be asking the board to continue with the discounted fees for the families that participate in that initial registration offering. And this is the time of year we do our renewals. So we did receive a milk renewal from Cloverleaf, who have been our longtime provider of our milk. And they did ask for a 1 cent increase for a half a pint of both white and milk. And we countered offered with a ½ cent, and very pleased to say that they accepted that. And then the other bit of negotiation we've been working on is with our Sunrise transportation. As we've been talking, Sunrise provides both regular and special ed transportation. And they proposed an 8% increase for both services going into school year FY22. The board recommendation was to go back and do a counter offer and to also see if they would enter in an agreement for an additional year going into FY23. So the agreement that we reached upon and will be asking board approval would be for a 6% increase going into FY22. Now, law prevents us from entering directly into a 2-year agreement with Sunrise because we want to stay competitive and always get the lowest bid. But we also had an agreement written up by our attorney that in going into FY23, if we do not get a timely request to bid from another transportation company, they've agreed to a 3% increase for FY23. So the 6%, you know, ideally we'd like a little bit less, but securing that 3% going into FY23, barring any additional bids, we'd be recommending the board to move forward and approve that contract. Here's up.
I know that before they had special fees and things like that regarding COVID and everything. Is that included in everything, or is there still like a clause? Is there some clause for additional people cleaning, yada, yada, yada?
Yes,
Is that over and above?
there is that clause in there that was put in most contracts for transportation last year. And our contract reads that we can be invoiced up to 10% of the cost for additional cleaning. Now, to date, we have not been invoiced any additional charges. Okay, the next thing on the agenda I wanted to talk about, it's called the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer. And we've been receiving emails because the Illinois State Board of Education is partnering with the Illinois Department of Human Services. And what they're doing is they are providing food benefits to families in need. Now, since our district participates in the Community Eligibility Program, CEP is probably what you've heard it called in the past, all of our students are eligible to receive these benefits. And what it is, it's a program where all of our students will receive a benefit card through the mail. The Department of Human Services will determine what that amount is, and it will be based on days in attendance. And those cards will be mailed to all of our families. Each individual card will have the student name on it. And what we need to do as a school is just reach out to our families. So there's a letter that the buildings are going to send out by the end of the week. And what's really important here is that the families confirm their mailing addresses. And so they'll be getting the cards in the mail. It will work like a debit card. It will actually be reloaded every month. The data collection with the Illinois State Board of Education is February 25th. So they're going to take our data as of February 25th, and all students enrolled at that time will actually get benefits retroactive till the first of the year. And then after that, the benefits will go out monthly. So a really, really great program. And if, in case you're wondering why they're getting the benefits is, since we offer grab and go meals, one of the criterias for this program is if a child is not offered a meal to consume in school. So even though we're providing a grab and go breakfast and lunch, each student is eligible for these benefits. So it's really going to help out a lot of families who really need a little help. So a fabulous program. Ms. Lammel?
That is similar to what happened in the spring, similar, but different, because in the spring, they just did it per child. If you apply, our school district, everybody qualifies because the school itself goes to it, correct? I just want to explain this because I know there was a lot of, because I know now that we're streaming, maybe people will listen or whatever, because a lot of people did not understand in the spring that if you applied for that, you got that card. Everybody who doesn't qualify for WIC or any of those other types of programs, which would normally, if we did it on a student by student basis, that would be how they would get it. So basically, in general, every student will get this card mailed to their home, and it'll be retroactive to when school started. And it's at a rate of, what did you say, like, I thought it saw $6.48 a day or something like that.
Yes, and I'm going to caution here, the rate that when I was on the webinar, it was $6.82. But again, that was, I haven't seen anything in writing on that. And if anybody has any questions on those benefits, they would actually direct it to the Department of Health and Family Services.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, great
I just want
summary.
people to understand it because it was interesting as a mom just talking to other people. Some of the people had no idea. I'm like, go, you know what I mean? To let them know about that, So, but if it's going to everybody, like you said, it's a lot easier because people don't have to really do anything.
But I do anticipate a lot of questions because it's a great benefit. Okay, and then just one other is I was on a webinar just the other day, and they did say that the districts would be getting a little additional guidance on the CARES money, and that information is due out February 22nd. So we might know a little bit about when that money is coming and more specifically what we can use it for. Does anybody have any questions on anything? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And a lot of good information, a lot of contracts that we are going to have to look to approve in a little bit. But especially that last 5.5 is a benefit for our families that we just really have to enter information on. And Mrs. Egan looks like she has her hand raised.
Just a quick question, and I'm not sure if this is the CARES Act or goes along somewhere else, but in terms of ventilation and purifiers within the rooms and within the buildings, has there been any discussion of that?
So we had talked with Pat Callahan in Studio GC even before we had gotten this money, and he said really our ventilation systems right now are really good. We have the exact type of filters that we need, but that is definitely where money can go. That is one of the options for the CARES money, if that's where we decide to spend. But everything we've talked with our architects right now have said our systems are very, very strong.
Strong, like pandemic virus strong, or they're just in good solid working order? I guess I'm not clear on that.
They're in good solid working order, and we would just have to see priority wise where that would fall on the list, that if that's something we wanted to invest in, we could definitely use the money towards that.
And I'm just going to add, prior to the beginning of the school year, we did change the filters in the ventilation system for a higher upgrade that would filter the air.
Mrs. Salzer, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I do know for old business, we will not be doing 6.1.
Okay,
I'll make,
turn this on.
I can't hear what you were saying.
Yeah, I was muted.
reread.
It's for the lighting replacement, $215,000 and $215,084. Whatever. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Mrs. Lamo was on the motion for the
Yeah.
first, and we needed a second.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. 7.2, potential board action to approve contract with Forecast 5 in the amount of $26,166.67 for FiveLab.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Aye. Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. Potential board action to approve contract with One District, One Book. Motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. I have Mrs. Egan on the motion and Ms. Davenport on the second. Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Aye. Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
And
Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. 7.4, potential board action to approve Cloverleaf Farms Distributions milk contract for 21-22. Motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Aye. Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer.
7.5, potential board action to approve extension of transportation contracts with Sunrise for regular and special education. Motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Aye. Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. 7.6, potential board action to approve school fees for 21-22, no change.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Davenport. Aye. Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. 7.7, potential board action to approve contract with J&L Metal Doors in amount of $11,270. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Lamo.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye. Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
and Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. Okay, we have no meeting reports. Informational, no. Anybody want to speak? Visitors? No? Okay, president's prerogative. Right now, we're past the half of the school year. We're actually going down to the end here. And we have the potential to have a lot of changes at the end, hopefully, and get more kids back in school. Thank you for doing what you guys are doing. I know how hard you're working. I've talked to a number of you many times. Just thank you. Keep doing it. And that's it.
We're going to look to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of the discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act as defined in the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1. The discussion of collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or the representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees as described in Section 2C2. The discussion of pending or probable and imminent litigation against, affecting, on, or behalf of the district is defined in Section 2C11. And the discussion of minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act as defined in Section 2C21 for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes. We will not be discussing any security issues or discipline. So we need a motion, right?
I'll make the motion.
I have Ms. Davenport on the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Mrs. Egan,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle,
Aye.
Mrs. Salzer.